Our top story. You have probably seen the video by now. If not, here it is, and we'll play it right away. Two young actresses wading into a sea of admirers at a mall in Kozhikode. What happens next is shocking, but it's definitely not surprising. As the crowd gets unruly, a stampede-like situation erupts, and both of them get molested. One of them turns around and slaps a man as well. There you see her. I requested both of these actresses to join me on the show today. They declined. I understand that, and I respect their decision as well. Now, this is what one of the actors wrote of her experience. She says, and I quote, "I can't bring myself to say where he touched me. Are people around us this frustrated? We visited many places for promotion, but never had such a disgusting experience. My female colleague also had a similar experience. She reacted to it, but I was unable to do it because of the circumstances. I was numb for a moment. In that numbness, I ask, is your sickness over? No, it isn't. We know it isn't." My guests this evening are sharing their experiences and how to deal with a situation like this. I wonder whether there's a template on how to deal with a situation like this, because all of us have been in it. Sameera Khan is a journalist. She's also the author of Why Loiter. Bhavna Ramanna is an actor. She's an activist as well. Talish Ray is an advocate, and Bhavya is a Congress spokesperson. Bhavya, I'm coming to you first. And I'm coming to you first for the simple reason because, we've all been to political rallies. I will not name the politician, but it was a female politician in Uttar Pradesh. And I was at that rally, and there were a lot of women journalists in that rally as well. And there were thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And every female journalist came back with the experience of being touched inappropriately during that rally. And it happens all the time. I want to ask you whether it's happened with you, and how do you even react to something like this? I know it even happens to women leaders and women netas. I've seen that myself. Most of them decide to keep quiet because, you're in the middle of an election season. Why make a fuss of it? I want to ask you if something like this has happened with you.
Something like this has happened with me in religious places, in buses, in public transport is what I mean. In political rallies, yes, it has happened to me. And very recently, it was not a rally, it was just a crowded place where I really felt uncomfortable. It has happened with me, first thing. And, the actresses in Kerala, I would like to first appreciate their courage to come out and speak about it and post, because that's a lot of trauma, when one goes through such a thing. To come out and speak about it is a big deal. And I really appreciate them for doing this, because today we are speaking about this issue. This itself is the beginning of maybe a big change. And this happened because of them.
I don't know. Is this the beginning of a big change? I have no such hope. Call me a pessimist, Talish, but I have no such hope. One of the actresses says, I was numb. I didn't know how to react. And that is how most of us are. We are so numb from the experience that we don't know how to react.
So yes, Shreya, see the entire scenario is worrisome. But let's talk about the fact that we're actually talking about it. We're not talking about it in terms of eve teasing. So I want to draw your attention to a couple of things. One, let us look at the trajectory of the Malayalam film industry as well. That is one group where Women in Cinema Collective came out, filed a PIL, and as recently as the 17th of March, got the liability fixed in terms of where is the production unit is going to be responsible for the safety of women. Because in this, I think what is also being missed, it's not, these women were out at their workplace, pretty much like you talked about, being there in a rally as a part of your workplace. Therefore, you are covered under the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act of 2013, where your workplace has to ensure that your safety is taken care of. So that's one part of it. Is there hope? Hope always springs eternal, because there are now women who are coming forward and talking about it. Look at what the post #MeToo, social scenario looks like. There is actually a redressal mechanism that's there. It's not just in terms of law, it's also about socially coming up and taking the narrative from being a survivor being a victim to a survivor, something that other colleagues of these actors themselves have done. So it is also about time to bring about a collective action in the form of places like the Women in Cinema Collective. It is time to go out and collectively hold the accountability where it's due. It is not just about a mall visit that was happening by two individuals in their own right. It was a workplace. They went because of the workplace. There was liability that was already there. And to talk about the fact where you have posturing and preening that comes about from government agencies like, there's a probe being conducted. But that's not the point. The point is that the person who went through that had her dignity assaulted. And that dignity should not have been assaulted in the first place. And because of that, to turn around and say that post factum, we are going to do a probe, is not good enough. It is time to for us to hold accountable. Let's also look at it that we are a country which in 2012, post the Jyoti Singh Pandey rape, turned up at the Rajpath and said that this is something that needs to change. And that's why you had the Verma committee. So I have hope, if you ask me. Does this happen to all of us? Of course it does. It's been happening forever. Our public spaces are increasingly giving the message of chilling effect. Don't come out if you do this. And I'm sure that gradually there would be somebody who turn around and say, but these women were there, and what do you expect people to do if the malls were crowded? But no, there is a course of action that's there. The production unit should have taken care of it. The producer should have taken care of it. The Association of Malayali Movie Artists, which is there, which should have taken care of it. They have no redressal.
Salish, I get your point. But here's the thing. I mean, I'll get in Bhavna here as well. But here's the thing. You're out for work. You're saying the liability needs to be covered. Your workplace has to ensure your safety. I understand that. I respect that. But is that always practical? I'm covering a political rally where there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people, 99.9% of them men. How can I expect my channel to ensure that I don't get molested? It's my job. I need to go into that crowd to speak to people. How can I hold my channel responsible for it and say they are liable?
It's about collective action. Look, this debate that how can I hold my employer responsible is a debate that has been covered in largely by the fact that you are going there for work. So I'm saying that there have to be measures that will have to be put in. And those can't be just your measure or my measure when we go to a workplace. There has to be collective action. It has to come about. But if you're asking, does hope come in? To come back to that main point, of course there's hope, Shreya. We're talking about this, something that, when we were back in college, we used to talk about this as eve teasing. It was never a serious enough issue. Currently, it is playing on primetime debate that it has gone through, and countless women go through this every day. So we are talking about it. So that's a step forward. Will it lead to the right direction is the question. I don't know.
But Sameera Khan, we have spoken about this ever since we were young. We have all spoken about it amongst ourselves. We've all been molested, pinched in inappropriate places when we have been in crowded buses. There are defensive measures we have taken on our own, like carrying umbrellas. But the question arises, is a public place really a public place in India, or is it a public place only for the men?
So I would say what our research with Violet has shown, it is primarily public spaces conceived of not just for men, but for certain kinds of men. More sort of, men who are able-bodied, usually it is upper class. They have privilege of accessing public space. Women don't. Every time something like this happens, my worry is, in this case, these are actresses, which I agree with the lawyer that they should be protected by, say, the film company or the people doing the promotions. They should have more bouncers. Why were there not enough bouncers?
But they had bouncers, actually. They had bouncers. And that is where the story gets intriguing.
But the point, but I want to go beyond that. I mean, whether it's a women journalists covering rallies or we are, female celebrities or actresses, this happens to them too, but it happens to all women across the board, urban, rural India, small towns, all the time, particularly when you're in very crowded places. People think they can get away because you can't identify. Even if you have CCTVs, you can't identify in a big group. So people, get away with it. So one is the whole thing. What should malls be doing? What should public spaces be doing? What should the government doing? Other thing is, what about these men? I mean, what about them taking responsibility? This is not the way you behave just because chance milta hai to chance lenge. That kind of attitude. And, this kind of thing, you're saying, kya hua? Every day, someone pinches you, someone grabs you, usse kya hota hai? It's not a major assault. But the point is that our research consistently shows, and the workshops we do with young women, that everyday street harassment in public space affects women's lives and affects their choices, the choices they make. So girls will tell you how they'll drop out of a class. I am worried the consequence of this act today will show that they'll say, oh, we'll not send film actresses for promotion, we'll send film actors, so their rights will be taken away to the public. But you will not say what else can we do to improve the environment for women to access. So all the time we look at issues of women and public space in terms of just safety, danger. We don't take the discussion largely saying what can we do to improve access of women to public space. They're equal citizens. They have equal rights to access the public. So I feel like this shouldn't take away rights from women. Constantly police women, we say, oh, you're a victim. How sad, how terrible it happened to you. Let's take you away. Let's take female reporters away from covering political rallies. Is that the result we want? No.
Absolutely not.
So the point is, please don't put onus on the people who are surviving this. You put the onus on the other groups of people who need to look out and say this should not be happening. So the perpetrators, certainly, law and order, maybe a mall security, or wherever you are in public. But women have full rights to public space. And they will claim to it and they will go back again and again. And what's good now, not only these actresses, but increasingly we're seeing a lot of young women now not willing to take this bullshit.
No, our public places are not inclusive. That is very clear. And I think every girl who has grown up in India will tell you that. And will give you a story to pad up her case. This local surveys that we are quoting says 39% women or 29% women have admitted they've been molested in public places. I will say 100% women who have stepped out in a public place, young girl to old woman, have been molested. Bhavana, have we come to a point here in India where this sort of public molestation in public places happens so frequently with everyone that we've just learned to shrug it off and say it's not a major assault. Chalo theek hai, sabke saath hota hai, hamare saath bhi hua. What can we do? Most girls will not even go to file a complaint. And even if you go to file a complaint, God help you.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of a complaint that you can actually file against it? Because it just happens like this, much before you even realize, things will just happen and then it disturbs you completely. I mean, you're emotionally completely disturbed, you're physically disturbed, and it's kind of a very... it's very shocking for every individual, especially for a girl or a woman who undergoes this. But it's something that I don't know how we can correct it. But it doesn't just happen with the women alone. It does happen with all the male stars too. It's not just it's not with the female stars. Of course, all the women, all the girls will go through this in India. I know that it is very, very sad. And I don't know, is it a very cultural thing? Is it something that, it's... taken for granted by men or a boy or any young man. I know even if it's educated and things like that, I think it's with the education it lost lesser. But as somebody was quoting, I think it's where people are not really educated, I think that's when they really cannot really differentiate the dignity of their own as well as the others. I think that's where it stands. It's about if they really respect their own self, as them, as who he is, I'm sure he can always respect the other person too, especially the woman. So that is where I think we're really lacking, we're really behind.
Okay.
I think education is the only medicine to this. That's what I think.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'll let Sameera Khan, who's done extensive research on that, come in. But before that, Talishre, I'm just now recalling an incident that Shushmita Sen had shared. And I'm talking about her because she's someone who's publicly shared this incident. Incidents like this happen with every common woman, whether you're a celebrity or a non-celebrity, about how she was in a crowd, again for some film promotion, and there's a young man, 11, 12, 13 years old, I don't remember the age, came and pinched her. And then she caught him, took him to a corner and scolded him. So how do you explain that?
It is definitely
How do you explain
a question.
that?
Yeah, so it is actually a question of being held accountable. It is also about the entire patriarchy that is prevalent. And patriarchy by its own nature says that these spaces are ours, and those that come into these spaces are also people that do not deserve to be treated with equal dignity that we treat ourselves, right?
I don't think it's about patriarchy all the time, Ms. Shriya.
I'll let you come in. Let Talish complete her point. I'll let you come in.
It's not the patriarchy. It's not about the patriarchy all the time. It's about curiosity, what they have developed during their teenage time, and then it's during their childhood days and things like that. And it's a curiosity about a woman that which has really developed in their mind for long years. I think that's what really sometimes really lead them to do certain things. It's not about patriarchy. It's not.
Talish and Samira disagree with you.
It's hidden values and then what have developed inside there.
Talish and Samira disagree with you.
Curiosity about men, but they don't go out doing this. My point is, some people are allowed to do this, one gender, and the other gender told to restrain themselves, sit with their crossed legs, don't, we are told a whole body language. Women are trained.
That's the whole
Why can't men be trained how to behave in public? Why should it be up to women to behave all the time? And, we are told everything. Why are men not taught these things? So it is patriarchy. Patriarchy gives a license that you can get away with anything. And women can't.
So that accountability, that's why a 13-year-old can actually reach out, and that accountability of being called out, because I remember Miss Sen's incident very well, where she talked about it. And she took the boy and held him accountable, looked him in the eye. So that accountability, when it's not there, the patriarchy enables it. And then on top of that, you have chilling effect. So you keep women out of those spaces, right? It's happened this one time. As this incident is talked about, multiple people would go in their home saying, all right, it's happened, it's wrong, but look, next time you go to the mall, just ensure that try not to go without another person who's a companion. It's a chilling effect that's taking place. So if you're asking, it is definitely about the accountability of one's own action. Otherwise, what is there to be derived? And when we look at harassment at public places, it is actually an abuse of power. Correct. It has nothing to do with sexual whims and fancies. It has everything to do with the fact that I have the power to do it. I will do that. I get away with that act because I know I'm safe and secure. I think there was also a point that you brought forward, Shreya, about the bouncers that were there around these actresses. And I just want to, if you look at the clips, can you see the distance that is there? I mean, those are men that are there to protect these actresses, but can you see the way that they're crowding around that person?
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not sure whether they're there to protect in the first place, which again talks about this entire enabling atmosphere that has been created. That enablement that goes on constantly, that anybody can get away with it. I mean, you just have to go into a local bus. If it was about education or the lack of it thereof, one, Kerala is one of the highest educated in terms of states, literacy in terms of states, but the second is also who are the ones who molest? A lot of the times it is senior citizens that come out. You go to a DTC bus, so often you would see somebody being called out and that person turns out to be a 60-plus-year-old man. Where is the curiosity there, except that they can get away with this thing and they believe that those spaces belong to them?
Bhavya, it's clearly not about being educated.
The fantasy about a woman, it's there in every man's mind, not to forget that. And
but you don't need to act on every fantasy,
ma'am. Every single boy will grow up fantasizing a woman or a girl. So it's a very natural process for any individual. It's just that the curiosity turns them, and then the fantasy, what they have been holding it for long years.
The definition of men will be men,
that will really
which are used as an excuse
them to do this.
You can't
pushes them to do this.
Bhavnaji, you can't act on every fantasy, and B, when a man or a boy goes into a crowd and pinches a Sushmita Sen or these two actresses, he knows he's doing something wrong. And he knows he can get away because of the cover that the crowd gives him.
We all know. It has happened with me too. I have scolded him back. We all know that.
No. So curiosity, if it is all about curiosity, I'm curious about car engines. It doesn't mean I go to a parking space and I start opening everybody else's cars. It has got nothing to do with curiosity. It has everything to do with the fact that patriarchy has enabled them. These are spaces that belong to men, where women are treated as lesser beings and chattels.
Bhavya, will it help for more women and women in public life to come out and speak about it? I never hear a politician, for example, speak about it. I've heard these two girls speak about it, which is very cool. I've heard Sushmita Sen speak about it. You have spoken about it. Do we need more women to come out and say, hey, this happened and this is not okay? And hold someone responsible for this, and so hold someone accountable for this.
I just remembered something I wanted to tell you.
Go ahead.
My mother had told me when she was young, she felt something like this in a theater.
It's all about the upbringing, that's what I will say.
But then, But then today, what is happening, thanks to social media, although there is a negative side to that too, how we are trolled and, we get rape threats over there. What I would like to say is, today, the problem is a city is considered livable, safe, and the indicator of a city's health would be how many women are on streets and in public spaces, both during days and nights. Today, according to Forbes, India is the fourth most dangerous countries in the world for women in public spaces, where America, United States Department of State, has given warnings to their solo female travelers about India. After Egypt, Morocco, Jamaica, India is the fourth most dangerous country. One. And the main reasons for these would be, lack of CCTVs, delay in investigations, absence of fast track courts. And, when these incidents happen, there are a lot of reasons why this keeps repeating. First thing, as some of you mentioned, the social restriction. I go home, tell my mother that I was groped here. The next time, she would stop me from going there. And I will miss out on my opportunities. A lot of women don't come out and speak because they don't want to miss out on opportunities. Like they're equally courageous. But women feel they will miss out on opportunities if they speak about it. So they silently bear this kind of, violating feeling.
Okay.
That's one thing.
Okay.
And when it comes to politicians, I think, you just mentioned more than 99% of people in a rally would be men, whether it is politics or even a film release or these events. When more and more women turn up in public spaces, definitely the safety issue will become bigger, and public spaces will become more and more safe. And
women need
cities are basically designed for cisgender young abled men, infrastructure wise, whether it comes to toilets, the safety, or public transport. Wherever you see, these are completely designed because they design it. Because how many women do you see in policy making, decision making tables, whether it is politics or in a company or in a corporate company? Very few women. So who will speak out for women?
So our cities, you're saying, and our urban spaces are simply not designed for women. They are not inclusive. They're not designed for women. How do you do that, Sameera?
Multi-dimensional view, multi-dimensional reasons why I'm saying this.
Yeah, sure. Let Sameera come in. I'm running out of time, but Sameera, quick 4-5 points on what you do to make your public spaces more inclusive.
Public loots for women, public toilets for women close at 9 o'clock in the night, but men's urinals remain 24/7. You're saying men are allowed in the city, women are not. So urban design, the way toilets are designed, the way they're opened or closed or not available, public transportation 24/7, safe public transportation. We must remember the Jyoti Singh Pandey case, which was the case provided she didn't have transport to go home and she'd get to Hills bus. So the point of all these facilities tell people that you're welcome in the city. You're equal citizens. You have rights. So a citizen, there is a way a city can be designed to be more inclusive, not just to women, to all kinds of senior citizens, disabled people, all kinds of, to children. So all kinds of ways. That's one thing. I also want to add, I agree with Bhavya on a very important point. She said, women are speaking up in many ways. They talk to other women for sure. But one of the reasons they don't tell this narrative at home or to other larger groups is primarily because they know that they will be policed. When they talk about as being victims of something like molestation, they're told, if you want to get out of home, if you want to pursue things outside of home, you have to put up with this. If you don't put up with it, you have to stay home. Like, we can't change the structures for you. So you have to, and if you talk about it a lot, we do a lot of workshops with young women about public spaces, and so many women come back with horrifying stories. Of being regularly stalked, but they cannot bring it up. They cannot tell people who care for them, like their family, about it. Because all young women said, "Are you mad? I can't tell my family. They'll take me away from this college, or from this tuition class, or from this drama class I like. They will not be allowed to go out. They will be policed, but nobody will change the structures outside. Till women know that their freedom will be protected, no matter what, they will be encouraged to speak more and more. Luckily, I think the young generation definitely changing the tide. But we need to empower them to say, it's okay if you're a victim or survivor of this kind of assault, you should speak up and your rights will be protected, not the perpetrators. This is really very important.
Before I wrap this discussion, I want you to speak to all the young girls who are possibly watching, and why just young girls? You know, molestation in public spaces happens across age groups. So I want you to speak to women who are watching and wondering, what can I do? If I get pinched, is that a crime in a public place? If someone touches me inappropriately in a public place, what do I do? Should I go to the police? Because the police will say, "Arey, itna chota mamla hai, aap kyun police station mein aa gayi," etc., etc. What does that young woman do? I don't know, to at least get the feeling that she has a say in this, that if something has happened, she can demand accountability. And she just doesn't have to go home quietly, live with it, and then go back, to the same street the next day.
So she has to first thing, ensure her own safety. Outside of that, naming and shaming is the first action that I would recommend. Beyond that, I would suggest that these are the kind of instances that should be hauled up. They should be put together and spoken about, because that really helps. You'd be surprised as to the number of people who actually come forward to support once they find out that there is a public space which is not safe. In fact, there are programs that run about, this is a place that's safe. Most colleges, most places will have informal groups that are there. So first is, of course, ensure that safety is taken care of. The second is name and shame and complain at whatever level that you can, that you're comfortable with. And the third is that around you, please make people aware that it is not, you're a survivor there. That it doesn't have to do with anything about victimization or victim shaming. Yeah, society nahi badlegi. It changes one step at a time, and you make that difference when you stand up and make a noise about it.
I'm glad we managed to have this discussion. Thank you very much, Sameera Khan, for joining us, Bhavna Ramanna, Taleshre, and Bhavya as well. It was very good to chat to all of you. I hope our viewers who were watching us today have taken away something from this discussion.